and welcome to another episode of FooBar. In today's episode, we are going to talk about AWS Glue. If you're interested about learning more about serverless, cloud computing, or software engineer practices in general, subscribe to my channel in the red button below. I post a video or 2 or 3 every week. So let's get started. This is the fourth episode in my series of building a serverless analytics pipeline. In the first episode, we went through the main important concept. In the second episode, we built the client. In the previous episode, we built the ingestion of the events and the storage part. And now we are in the part of the analytic pipeline that we need to process those events. So we are going to get to Glue. If you don't know, remember what I'm talking, let's look at our architectural diagram. And here you can see how we are building the first part, the analytics with Amplify in our client, sending events to Firehose, storing them in S3. And now we are in the processing part with Glue Crawlers, and Athena is also part of the processing part, but it's going to be part of the last video. So today we are going to deep dive on Glue and Glue Crawlers, and after that we are going to go through the demo and see how to implement that in our pipeline. So in the first video of this series we talk about this step in the analytics pipeline, the step of processing our analytics events. For doing that, I presented a couple of ways that you can do that with AWS. The first one was to process the events by executing a Lambda function per event. That way, you can transform each event and also enrich them if necessary. This is a great functionality of serverless, that you can scale the amount of Lambdas needed to support the incoming events. Another way in AWS is to use some of the existing managed services that you can use for processing the events. In this video, I will be focusing on AWS Glue, but there are others like Athena, Redshift, Kinesis Data Analytics, and many others to do this. Now you are wondering, what is Glue? The name sounds not that very descriptive. What Glue is gluing together? Well, Glue is a serverless, fully managed extract, transform, and load service. ETL for short. Now, I'm pretty sure you're more confused than before if you don't know what an ETL is. Before using Glue, I never worked with an ETL. I'm not an analytics person, so I understand your pain. So let's go one step back and learn what an ETL is. An ETL system copies data from one or more sources into the destination system in a different format than the one in the sources. For doing that, first, this ETL needs to do some kind of data extraction. That means getting the data from the different sources. Those sources can be different, like file system, SQL database, whatever you can imagine. Then this service needs to do a transformation of the data. In this step, the data is cleaned and transformed into a new format, and if it's coming from multiple sources, combined into one. So then this new data can be used for queries and analyzing. For example, you can have the data in an SQL, coming out from an SQL in a table format, and then you can transform it into Parquet that is way more efficient than for storing, or you can have a file with JSON and then transform it into something more queryable. And finally, there is the step that is called data loading, and that means that the new data will be stored in the new destination, and that can be another database, a data warehouse, or a data lake. So from there, then you can do your analysis. So now we can go back to Glue, now that we understand a little bit what this ETL thing is. So let's start the first part of the ETL process, the data extraction in Glue. Glue will extract the data from different sources and save the metadata of each of these sources into a data catalog. The data sources where Glue can extract that data are S3, RDS, Redshift, Dynamo. AWS Glue Data Catalog is a central metadata repository. The catalog contains databases, and databases contains tables. This is a metadata repository. You are not copying all the data into this data catalog, only the structure of the data. The databases are used to organize the tables in Glue. A table can be in one database at a time, and a database can contain tables that define data from many data sources, so they don't need to be homogeneous. The tables have columns with different attributes, and the attributes have some fixed type, like normal tables in a database. So basically, the catalog contains the metadata representation of all the different data that Glue will extract, and then also from the destinations. So all the data that Glue is going to work with needs to be represented in a table. This is very useful because we can work with data that is not in a structured database, like for JSON or comma-separated values or different things that are in files that we don't have a structured format, and then we can create a table out of it. For example, we can have data in an S3 bucket in the JSON format that is partitioned in the bucket by year, month, date, and hour. That's quite normal way to store events. We have done it with Firehose. That's how Firehose will store our events. And then we can create a table that can understand these partitions and the structure the data is stored and can extract it from that S3 files. So it's not only understanding the file itself, but also the way that the data is stored. So it's very magical. So for the Glue data extraction, we have two options to populate this catalog table. First, we can create the tables manually. This is a little bit pain if you don't have structured data. So if you have a structured data, you can basically do some kind of copy paste there. But if you have something like we have that is JSON events, then you need to go and define those by hand, and that's very hard. And also if you have partitions, and those partitions are changing all the time, that's very complicated. So then we can rely on the second option, that is the Glue Crawler. A crawler is a program that will go through all the source data and create the table in the catalog. We can run the crawler in a regular interval and keep the metadata catalog up to date. So we will create a crawler, and this crawler will go through our data, and it will keep our table up to date. And this is important to have the crawler run in regular intervals, because as Firehose will put all the data in partitions, then new partitions will get added, and if we don't do this regularly, then we will lose track of the new partitions. But we will see more in detail that when we are in the demo. So now let's move to the next part of the ETL process, that is the data transformation step. Glue has a concept called job. A job is a business logic that performs the extract, transform, and load work in Glue. When you start a job, Glue will run a script that extracts the data from different sources. It will transform the data and load it into the different destinations. So to get started with a job, you need to have defined some tables in your data catalog, the source, wherever is the source tables, and also the destination tables. And then for the data transformation per se, Glue will generate you a script that will transform the data from the source to the destination. This will be generated automatically. However, you can customize that script as much as you want, and the script will be in PySpark or Scala. Jobs can run based on triggers, like something happened and then the trigger gets executed, or they can be time-based. We will not be seeing this in the example because Glue is super integrated into Firehose. So we are not using the jobs in order to do the transformation. This is going to be a transformation that will happen because of the Firehose setup. So we are not going to use the jobs, but I imagine that in the background there will be some kind of jobs that are attached. And finally, we have the data load, and this basically will store all the data from the transformation into the defined table in the data catalog. Now you can have that data in whatever destination you want, in S3, Redshift, RDS, or Dynamo, and then you can do some kind of analysis. So I hope you are still there after all this information. Now it's time to see how Glue works in the console and the demo, and maybe you understand a little bit more what we are going to do here. So let's go back for 2 seconds to our architectural diagram to know what we are going to do. We have already built the first part, the amplify the Kinesis Firehose and the S3 bucket in the 2 previous videos. If you have not watched it, you don't need to watch those in order to understand what we are building. If you want, that will help you a lot, but it's not that important. Now in this demo, we are focusing on that square, this glue. That's the only thing we are going to do. We are going to create a glue that will transform the events that come into JSON into Parquet, and we will have a crawler that will keep our metadata updated. So let's go to the code. So this is where we stopped in the previous video. We have created the Firehose and we were sending events and it was working. So now what we are going to do is to go back to our Firehose and we are going to convert the record format. We are going to use that functionality in Firehose to convert a record format. In order to do that, we need to have a glue table in place. So this table will need to be our destination. And for doing that, I will do a little cheat because I don't want to write the destination by hand. I will add a crawler, and this crawler will be in the source. It will basically analyze the events without being transformed. So before adding the transformation into our Firehose, I will create this crawler. And then this crawler will create the table for me in JSON. So the table that this crawler will create is a table that has a JSON representation. Then I will enable my conversion in Firehose. Then the conversion will start because I need to have a glue table in order to do this conversion. I will have a Parquet file that I can use, and then I will do it again. It's confusing, but maybe you understand it when you see it. So I will create a crawler now. This crawler is crawling on the JSON file. So we have not done any conversion yet to our Firehose. So we are going to put here the S3 bucket with the destination folder. That's where our basically JSON is going. For that, I need to give IAM role and all these things. So this crawler will create a table for us. I will put the frequency to run every 5 minutes with that cron expression, and then I have created a database. It's a second to create, and then I will create this crawler. We don't have a table yet. So this crawler now will run. I will run it, and now what it will do, it will go to our destination folder where our JSON events are stored. It's going to fetch the metadata for those events and then create a table for it. It takes a little while, but after it's done, you will see in the side where it says table added, you will see a 1. This is maybe pointless. You just need to have a table in order to create your Firehose. You can have maybe an empty table. I have not tried with it, but it's kind of what I'm using and it works. So now our crawler ran, we have 1 table added, and then we can go to tables and we can see that in our database we have the destination table, and there we can see that we have 8 records that are coming from those boats that we just put in the previous video. Now we can go to Firehose and do the convert record enable. We are going to convert to Parquet. We need to pick the region where glue is, Ireland, then the database, and then the table that we just created. That's why we needed to do this hack. And then we need to increase the buffer size for when the Firehose will start operating. So before we had 1 megabyte, but now as we added the conversion, we need to wait for 64 megabytes. So the buffer that we wait is longer. So either we have 64 megabytes or we wait for 1 minute. So we are increasing a little bit. Now the real time is a little bit longer, and we will need to wait for a little longer. So now we have everything in place, and I want to add the source record backup. So here we will be able to store all our source that will be in JSON. So just to have a backup, it's going to be there. And the last thing you need to do is to update your IAM permissions now to be able to access this glue, and it will do it automatically by you clicking there. It will just generate a new role policy, and that's it. Now we can save, and now our glue is connected. Let's open the monitoring and let's start firing events. Now this will take a little longer, either 64 megabytes of data that you transfer or 1 minute. So it takes a while. Just bear with this and have patience. For the sake of the video, I will make this faster so you don't get bored, because we will need to wait forever if not. So now we can see that our events have come in. We have 14 new events. That's the amount of events I sent from Java. And now we need to have not convert anything. It has not gone there yet. So we need to keep on waiting a little bit longer until the records get converted. Now we can see it, that there is some 14 records that have been converted. So that means that Glue have done its work. So now we have a Parquet file in our S3. And if we go back to Glue, we have our table in JSON, and we don't want that, because now when the crawler runs, it will do something totally wrong. So what we need to do is to update the crawler. But you cannot update it if it's running, so you need to wait for the crawler to finish in order to update it. So now we will wait for it to finish, and you will see what happens in our tables. Now we have a crawler that is just crawling over data that is wrong. Because in our destination now we have a mix of JSON and Parquet and partitions, and everything is getting very confusing, and the crawler is just failing. So you can see that it added 3 tables. And then if we go to the tables, we will see that we have those extra tables that are just kind of partitions that we don't want. So no, we don't need anything like this. This is all wrong. We just need to delete everything. We will also delete the destination table, because we will create a new one that is in the format of Parquet. So now we need to go to S3, to destination, and there we will need to remove the JSON files. So now when the crawler comes to the destination, it will only see Parquet files. Because if you remember, now we are doing the transformation, and we have Parquet in the destination and JSON in the source. So we need to remove the JSON and keep only the Parquet. So now when the crawler comes, it will see the data that we want to see, and it will keep it updated. So why we need the crawler every 5 minutes, even if now we have gotten the metadata right? We want it to keep the partitions up to date, because this folder destination is sorted by year, month, date, hour, and every hour it will create a new folder. And if you don't have the crawler running regularly, then it will lose track of the all the folders and all the partitions, and you will not see the updated data in the analytics pipeline that we are going to see later. Why we want this glue table? Because we need it for our next step, that is the Athena, that needs a glue table. It needs to have some kind of structured data. So that's why it's so important to create this glue table of the destination, of the Parquet format. That's the one we want to analyze with Athena. And in order to be able to analyze it with Athena, we have to have created it in Glue. So that's the reason. But it's after you do it once, then you know how to do it. It's not that complicated. And now we have everything up to date. We can just send a new event. I will send, I don't know, 7, 8 PHP, 10 PHP, and then we just wait for the events to get processed and everything to be right, and we will see that it just works. In the next episode, we will see how this gets represented in a visualization with QuickSight and Athena, but basically you don't need to touch the glue anymore after you have everything configured. This was the video for today. I hope you like it. If you did, give a big thumbs up. And there is another episode coming in this series, so subscribe. We are going to talk about Athena and QuickSight so we can visualize and see the end of our real-time serverless analytics pipeline. You might be wondering why I didn't use infrastructure as code for this example. I'm always preaching about it. If you want to see the infrastructure as code, how I do it, let me know in the comments and I will make a video just doing the infrastructure as code and not going into the details. But I think it's way easier to show you things when in the console, but I think infrastructure as code is always the way to go. Around here, there are other videos from my channel for you to watch. You can find the last episode I published and you can find the most recommended video that YouTube thinks is the best suited for you. And also the subscribe button just in case. If not, I see you in the next episode of FooBar. Ciao, ciao!